thank you so much for joining me for my very first episode of ArtMas. I am very, very excited to take on this challenge, and I hope that you guys will come along with me through December 25th. So I figured that I would start this series with my highlights from Inktober, because honestly Inktober is part of the reason why I'm doing this series in the first place. I didn't get to complete Inktober. A lot of things just kind of got in the way, just life and work and everything else, and I was honestly really disappointed with myself. So this series is kind of going to be a redeemer for me, I guess. So I thought that it would be appropriate to start with the bits of Inktober that I did complete. So if you don't know what Inktober is, it is an annual arts challenge where artists from all over the world come together and challenge themselves to create one ink drawing for every day in October. It can be in pen, it can be in markers, it just has to be some kind of ink. And there is an official list of prompts. I'll probably put it in the video at some point. And you can either follow along with the prompts or you can kind of do your own thing. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool to see, like when you go on Instagram or other social media, just to see everybody's different interpretations of the prompts. So for this first drawing, this is from the official Inktober prompts, and the first prompt was called Divide. And so what I did here was I just created these little flowers and put in the triangles there. And outside the triangles, I made all the colors grayscale, and then within the triangles, I put them in color so that the triangles were kind of dividing the color and the black and white. It's a bit more conceptual. I like to draw characters and people and things like that, but I also like to challenge myself to think a little bit smaller and maybe just come to understand that just because a drawing is small doesn't mean that it's not valuable or that it's not a good drawing, I guess. But overall, I'm definitely happy with how it came out, and I think I am just about finished with the first drawing, so let's go ahead and move on to drawing number 2. So actually, this was the very first Inktober drawing that I did for this year. I actually jumped on the bandwagon a little bit late, which I think was part of the reason why I didn't succeed in completing Inktober this year. And so this was the prompt for Poison. I think it was either day 3 or day 4. And for this, I took inspiration from the scene in Snow White where the evil queen is dipping the apple into the cauldron of poison, and then she pulls it out, and that skull appears, and there's just the poison potion just kind of dripping off of it. It's just a classic Disney villain moment that has just always stayed with me, and it actually was a scene that used to really scare me as a kid, just like when she made that transformation into the old witch and was just so hell-bent on killing Snow White. And of course, when I was little, I didn't understand the reason why she would ever want to kill somebody, you know, who didn't do anything to her. And so, I'm not gonna lie, Snow White was kind of a scary movie for me as a kid. But I definitely had a lot of fun with interpreting this particular prompt. I just loved playing with with the slime and just the line weights, and just to see how I could make it look like it was actually dripping down and not just these flat lines. And I also enjoyed playing with the colors as well. I love my Prismacolors. They are one of my absolute favorite art supplies to use, and I know I've said this a million times probably about any kind of art supply I use on my channel, but they are honestly great. They blend really nicely, and I get a full range of values and tones and so many different colors to choose from. So I have zero intention of dropping them from my collection anytime soon. So this part here was a little bit of a challenge. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to color the skull. I was originally going to color it like bright green or something like that, but then I kind of decided to go with this gold orange color because I almost wanted it to look like a bruise in the skin of the apple or something like that. I ended up making the slime green. I mean, overall, it turned out nicer that way. I think it just made it look a little bit more natural, I suppose. But overall, I am very happy with how this one turned out, and I was very happy that it turned out so nicely for my very first drawing of Inktober for this year. So let's go ahead and move on to the next drawing. Okay, I think this prompt has to be my absolute favorite from Inktober from this year. This prompt was underwater, and for this I decided I wanted to draw a nautilus. I actually saw nautiluses in real life at an aquarium years ago. I think it was at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. They just had a bunch of them just floating around in this tank, and there was like a red light in there, and it looked really, really weird and just kind of surreal. They're just kind of floating around, just doing their own thing. And I mean, I don't know, they're really oddly fascinating creatures to me. I mean, they look weird, and they're one of those, what are they, I think they call them like living fossils, because they've been around since long before the dinosaurs, which is even more fascinating to me. And they're somewhat gross looking, but they're also oddly beautiful in a way. They're oddly graceful in a way. But I wanted to do a slightly different interpretation of a nautilus than normal. I decided instead of using the normal brown color scheme, I would go with a more colorful color scheme. And I had never really done that before. I've seen, you know, like the paintings of zebras where the stripes are rainbow instead of black. You know, or the paintings of like elephants or lions where they have this bright, colorful rainbow color scheme. And that always really, really intimidated me, because it's so easy to go overboard with a project like this. It's really difficult to straddle the line between it looking really, really cool and just looking obnoxious because you go way too crazy with the colors. So I just kind of decided to take it easy a little bit. I used colors that were really close to each other on the wheel, so I started with that hot pink and then worked it into the blue, then into the purple, and I used green for the whatever that part is that sits over its eye, and then blue for the tentacles. And overall it worked out really nicely. I think I was able to nicely establish the value range with just these colors. But overall, I am very, very pleased with how this turned out, and I really would like to continue working with this kind of concept of replacing mundane, boring colors with these bright and colorful ones. And I'm so happy with how this turned out that I've even considered maybe trying to put it on a t-shirt or on a mug or something like that, just because I'm just so happy with how it turned out. So with that, let's go ahead and put a pause on this guy, and let's move on to the next one. So this is my interpretation of the prompt Crooked. I realized that the recording didn't start until about a quarter of the way through the drawing. I didn't realize that I didn't hit record until I was already done inking and sketching and all of that, but hey, what can you do? You can't really go back and change it. So when I heard the word crooked, the first thing I thought was a crooked smile, and what better thing to put a crooked smile on than a jack-o'-lantern? And just with that, Halloween is my absolute favorite holiday of all time, and I actually just realized I never got to carve a pumpkin this year, and I'm kind of sad about that. Like I said, I was just super, super busy this year. There was just so many things going on. I moved into a new apartment, and just all these other family and life things that were happening, and I just didn't have time to sit down and design a pumpkin for myself. But that's okay. There's always next year, and life just kind of happens sometimes. But before I continue on that little tangent of mine, I just kind of want to design this guy just to be kind of just cute looking and just make his mouth look like maybe a 3-year-old was trying to carve the pumpkin and their parent was trying to help them, and the mouth just kind of turned out to be this long, scraggly, crooked looking thing. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen the jack-o'-lanterns where you can obviously tell that a very young kid had done some of the carving, but I mean, that's okay. I mean, they still just look so darn cute, and there's not a whole lot of jack-o'-lanterns or pumpkin carvings that I don't like. Actually, no, come to think of it, I did get to carve a pumpkin this year, because my sister moved to England. Before she left, we had a little send-off party for her, and since she wasn't going to be in the States for Halloween, we got to carve some pumpkins. So that was a lot of fun. But once again, I digress, and I hope you guys enjoy my little interpretation of Crooked. Okay, so now we're going to get into the prompt Screech. For this one, I was a little bit nervous about it because at first when I heard the word screech, I was kind of thinking about like a screeching tire or just some kind of vehicle or something like that, and I am not good at drawing any kind of vehicle, let me tell you. But then, of course, with Halloween being right around the corner, I just kind of started to rethink it as maybe some kind of creature that would make a screeching sound. So I came up with like this weird, like, demon, harpy, weird looking thing with all these like boils and warts and like these just dead eyes and scraggly teeth and this wild hair. And I was just really trying to imagine it the whole time I was drawing this as having this screeching sound like coming from it, or like if it's like you're in a horror movie and then you hear this screeching sound and you turn around and then you see this thing. This is definitely one of my more Halloween-esque pieces from Inktober this year. But like I said, I just love Halloween. I love things that are scary. I worked in a haunted house for 2 years, and nothing makes me happier than scaring people sometimes. And so with that, I also enjoy drawing scary things. I mean, I don't know what it is about drawing scary things, but I just kind of get a kick out of it, really. Just kind of diving into the deeper parts of my brain and just kind of seeing, you know, the kind of things that my brain can come up with, which will serve as inspiration for my nightmares later on, let me tell you that. And this was actually the only Inktober drawing that I did that I didn't actually color. I decided to leave this black and white. I don't know why, I just felt like it just looked more creepy in black and white, and I felt that if I put it in color, I wouldn't pick the right colors and I would just kind of ruin it and make it look not as scary. But I did go back and try to fix up my line weights a little bit. That was actually one of the biggest critiques I had in art school, was that my line weights weren't really varied, and it's totally true. I do have a hard time with varying my line weights a bit, and so I like to practice a bit with this Micron brush marker. I think I may have gone a little too crazy with adjusting my line weights, but overall I am very happy with how my interpretation of Screech came out. Alrighty guys, if you have stuck it out all the way to the end, first and foremost, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So this is the grand finale from Inktober for this year, and this prompt was called Gigantic. And I kind of had a hard time coming up with a concept for it, but then of course my Halloween brain kicked in, and I had also just been watching a Let's Play of Slender, The Arrival, and just a bunch of other Slenderman games, and so I thought, what better interpretation of gigantic than drawing a super gigantic Slenderman? And I also drew the little girl in front of him, like kind of like his next victim or whatever, just to kind of give an idea of scale and just how massive he is. And I also decided to interpret him as having just like those weird looking tentacle things. I just feel like that makes him look a million times just more scary and just supernatural, and just this dark, wicked creature from some other dimension or whatever. I actually first heard the Slenderman story, the creepypasta or whatever, when I was in high school. And I'm not gonna lie, I fell for it hook, line, and sinker because my sister was telling me about it. She was like, oh, like there's this creature and you could see it in the background of these pictures, you know, and this and that. And I fell for it. I thought it was a real thing. But of course, being a little bit older now and a little bit wiser, I know that it's not. But I'm not gonna lie, a lot of like the Slenderman games and the Slenderman stories are definitely enough to keep me up at night. They are quite freaky, and I don't care for jump scares, you know, which the Slender games are notorious for. But I do enjoy watching Let's Plays of them, but will I ever play them myself? Absolutely not. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the very first episode of ArtMas, and I really hope that you will stick around for episode 2 through 25. And I will be uploading episode 2 at some point tomorrow, probably in the afternoon. So yeah, just stay tuned for that, and just make sure you hit subscribe and hit the little bell so that you will know when I upload my next video. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.